Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the April meeting of the Lehigh Valley Amateur Astronomical Society, and our first ever online meeting during this worldwide crisis where we are not allowed to see each other face to face. So I appreciate everybody joining us, and I'm going to give a couple real quick announcements here, and then I'm going to introduce our speaker, and I don't have any notes to say about him, so I'm going to have to do that off the cuff, but you know, we'll do the best we can. And then we'll enjoy our presentation, and then after the presentation we'll just have a little quick recess where I'll open up the mics again and we can all chat a little bit, and then I'll bring us back to order for a couple of little business you know, information things having to do with the clubs. So without further ado, we're very lucky to have Peter Detterline here with us tonight. He is a longtime member of LVAAS and former director of LVAAS, and a great and steady friend of LVAAS. He has been the director of the Boyertown Planetarium, which he's now retired from. He's recently had a visit to the southern half of the Earth to do some astronomy down there, and he's going to tell us what that's like. So so let me welcome Peter Detterline. Don't forget to share your screen, Peter, with his presentation about observing from the Southern Hemisphere.
Thank you, Rich. And let's share this. All right, everybody should be able to see the screen. We are talking about astronomy down under. First of all, by a show of hands, how many of you want to go on and see astronomy in the Southern Hemisphere? See, isn't that great? We can even do this interactive. And there's a lot of great reasons. Blaine raised his hand, 2, 3 participants. All right, I can see that. That's pretty cool. I think it's kind of a dream of ours to always go into the Southern Hemisphere and see a totally different sky than what we're used to having here. And there are a number of reasons for that. First, we have new constellations we've never seen before. Really classics like the Southern Cross and the Coalsack, and of course Alpha Centauri and Eta Carini, and all the really cool things we've heard about that we can't see, including the large and the small Magellanic Cloud. Just seeing those in the sky. And we imagine a sky so rich with stars and so beautiful, we even catch the zodiacal light in the morning or the evening. It's just an amazing place to be. But probably the number one reason you want to go into the Southern Hemisphere is really the Milky Way. The Milky Way can extend all the way up to your zenith. And that is something that we don't see here in the north, as Sagittarius always hugs the horizon. But here, Sagittarius can actually go up at 90 degrees. And it gives you a whole new perspective and a wow feeling when you see this in the sky. And it's amazing. So today I want to talk about what it's like to go to the Southern Hemisphere. I want to talk about what you should take, what you should see, and how to make the most of your time while you're down there. I've actually been in the Southern Hemisphere 3 times. The first was in June of 2001, where I went to Zambia to see a solar eclipse. Had some LVAAS members on that one. Fred, you were there. There's Fred. And we went to see the solar eclipse in Zambia, but in Zimbabwe, where we were, we had 2 nights, 2 pristine, gorgeous, no moon nights to see the sky. It would be my first time looking at the sky in the Southern Hemisphere, and I was really excited about this. I didn't have a lot of gear in 2001 to take on this trip, mostly because of luggage for the trip, and any astronomical gear I had was really set toward the total solar eclipse, not for doing astronomy. Besides, I only had 2 nights. So my weapon of choice was a pair of binoculars. I went to the Southern Sky Binocular Club at the Astronomical League. They do all your homework for you. They tell you the 100 best binocular objects to see in the southern sky. So I would just kind of follow along in that list. I have absolutely no nighttime pictures of the sky during that time, and the skies were incredibly gorgeous. But I had so much fun just learning the sky and seeing it with the binoculars. That was really the best way to get started down there, learning constellations, using binoculars to catch all sorts of clusters, globulars, what have you. And of course, the other nice thing is you always get that pin from the AL if you complete the club. The second time I was in the Southern Hemisphere would be down in Chile, where I was an astronomy ambassador, and that was in 2015. Now, in this one, we were on a tour where we would get to see all the major American observatories in Chile. And so we were at Alma, we were at Gemini, we were at Cerro Tololo. But we had 2 nights, 2 beautiful, pristine nights at Cerro Tololo to see the sky. There's a picture of the Blanco Observatory, Victor Blanco Observatory, and of course, notice the lack of Polaris as we're in the Southern Hemisphere. Again, luggage and space were limited, but on this one, I decided the best bet would be to take a Canon camera, my 60DA, and a tripod. Just a regular photographic tripod. I didn't have room to take a motorized mount. So my exposures were limited to 30 seconds, basically. And this is a shot of the Large Magellanic Cloud I took back there for one 30-second shot with this. But I got to see a lot of the nighttime sky and got to take some beautiful shots of it. So now I had the good fortune of my son going to uni. Dad, that's what we call university. And down in Sydney, he wanted to go to Australia for college. I'm thinking, I love that idea. I will definitely visit you. And so I went in 2019, December of 2019, came back early this January. So I got a chance to spend the holidays with him. But part of that was to travel out into the center of Australia, out near Alice Springs, Uluru, Ayers Rock, and do some good astronomy. And that's what I want to talk about today. So here's the plan. Now, on the first trip, it was June. When I was in Chile, it was June. This time it would be December. And I kind of like that. No, the Milky Way is not going to be high overhead. You're not going to be able to see Sagittarius at all. But I've never seen the southern constellations in the wintertime, our winter, their summer. So the big plan was to be able to go down there and be able to do things a little differently. So here's the itinerary. I'd see my son for a couple of days in Sydney, then we'd go on vacation up to Cairns, see the Great Barrier Reef, then to Alice Springs. Notice we got a long time there to do my astronomy. Back to Sydney, and then over to New Zealand for a couple of days to see a really good friend of mine who lives there and to do some more astronomy. And then back to Sydney to spend time with my son and home. So that's the game plan. My clear nights are going to be here. I'm ready for Alice Springs and I'm ready for New Zealand. Forget about Sydney, forget about Cairns. We're in cities there. It's just not going to work. But Alice Springs and New Zealand are the prime locations. The equipment this time would be the first time I would take a telescope into the Southern Hemisphere. And I chose the William Optic Red Cat 51 millimeter refractor. The optics are wonderful, absolutely beautiful. And I've taken some gorgeous nebulae shots here in the north with it, just in preparation. I would actually have a guider. Instead of 30-second shots, which I was limited to in Chile, now I'm taking 5 to 8 minute shots. I'm going to be able to stack. I'm going to be able to take some really phenomenal images with this. And the mount's going to be the Ioptron SkyGuider Pro, which is highly recommended for this and for travel. ZWO ASI Airbox is what I'm going to be imaging through. I'll get the pictures on through that and use a tablet in order to control everything out in the field. And a Pegasus power box to plug everything into and then into a battery. This is the goal. One of the big things I had was, do I take a Canon 60DA or do I take a ZWO camera, which I prefer? I went with the 60DA. And the reason for that is redundancy. My friend Dave, who lives around here, has a couple extra 60DAs and lent me one of his as well. So I could take 2 cameras. In case one of them went, I still have the other one. So I thought, too much of an issue bringing 2 different types of cameras. Let's have some redundancy just in case. One of the things I want to do is look through a telescope and see some of the really great treasures of the southern sky. Again, I don't have to do the homework for this. The Astronomical League will do that for you with their Southern Sky Telescope program. In this case, I'm not really going to be imaging through a telescope. I'm going to be sketching. And this isn't going to happen until New Zealand. To do the Southern Sky Telescope, you need something bigger than a 51 millimeter Red Cat. You want at least 5 inches. So I would be using some Dobsonians over there and getting ready to take some sketches of that. I also want to take lots of nice shots using the Red Cat to see what I can capture off in the Southern Hemisphere. So just so we're clear, these are some shots I took in Chile of Eta Carini and a small Magellanic Cloud. That's a Northern Hemisphere glob, but we'll see our southern stuff in a bit. But that's the game plan. That's what I want to do. Well, I'm taking 5 to 8 minute exposures. I also want to do some sketching. I have a sketchbook that's completely set up for constellations. So each page is a different constellation. I have the details of the sketch. I've got some mythology on it, star names, Greek, the whole bit. I've done the Northern Hemisphere. I've done a lot of the South that I could get from here. But now I could fill in some of those Southern ones as well. I figured I could get everything done except maybe about 5 that were too close to the sun. So I was looking forward to doing that in between exposures. I also take pictures of the constellations, so the other camera is going to be imaging constellations while the other one's on the Red Cat. Okay, before we get started on this journey, let's look at the fine print. You want to go to Australia. We all do. But there are a number of things that are holding us back. Finances are one, right? The plane flight is always the other. Nobody wants to sit on a plane for that long a period of time. So the flight from Philly to LA was about 4.5 hours. I had a 3-hour layover. And then I took off from LA to Sydney, which was 15 hours on the flight. Wasn't that bad. I didn't mind that at all. They had enough in-flight entertainment and the food and everything going through. It really wasn't that difficult, and that was sitting in coach. If 15 hours doesn't sound thrilling to you and you still want to head down there, I would suggest 1 of 2 things. Go to LA and then fly to Hawaii. Spend a day or 2 in Hawaii and then take a 10-hour flight to Sydney. Or from LA, fly down to Fiji. spend a couple of days in Fiji. That's a 10-hour flight from LA to Fiji, and then just another 4-hour flight or 5 hours to get over to Sydney. And that way it breaks it up a little bit, if you can have that kind of time. Australia is wonderful. Africa was phenomenal. Most of the people spoke English. It wasn't too bad. South America was a guided tour. A lot of people spoke English, but if you know Spanish, you're in much better shape. But in Australia, they speak English, a really cool kind of English, right? They also drive on the wrong side of the road. But it's not difficult to rent a car. You just need an American driver's license and you're good to go. And quite frankly, driving around Australia was not difficult. I had the car for a couple of days when I was in Alice Springs. I wanted that for the astronomy. And the only problem I had was every time I wanted to use the turn signal, I ended up turning on the windshield wiper. They seem to have those reversed as well. I never quite figured that part out. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Australia that's pretty deadly, and you always hear about that. They've got the most poisonous snakes in the world. They got the most poisonous spiders in the world. They got crocodiles running around and great white sharks, and all these things want to eat you and tear you apart. And it gets worse. There's stuff in the water that's going to get you. The box jellyfish, the sting of that is a pain beyond belief. There is a plant that looks like the shape of a heart with little fuzz in the top. And if you touch this, they say it is the worst pain imaginable, and nothing makes it better. Sometimes, of course, it's quite fatal. So it's not just the animals, it's the plants and the whole bit. And you hear a lot about that. But as I heard one Australian say when he was talking about crocodiles, he said, crocodiles. He said, half of it's BS, the other half, no worries. And that's pretty much the way it is. Yeah, that is true. There are a lot of animals, plants, fish, whatever that's going to wipe you out, but people really don't die from them. They're trying to avoid you, you're trying to avoid them. It's not a big deal. So I went in our winter and the summer in Australia. And of course, the day I left, the big news item was at a new December record of 49.9 centigrade, which by the way is about 122 degrees Fahrenheit. So they're hitting a new heat wave down there. So it's going to be hot. And speaking of hot, they also had lots of fires. If you remember, that was in the news constantly. So the fires were also going to be a huge, huge problem being down there. The sights. I arrived in Sydney. My son took me on a tour of his city. And coming back from the ferry off Manly Point, we're coming back and you can see the Sydney Opera House here. And you can see the famous bridge. We can pay to go up to the top. And there's the sun, and it is early in the afternoon, and you can see the smoke. You can see the effects of the fire. Wasn't expecting to do any astronomy in Sydney anyway. Not every day was like that. Of course, you always love to see the Sydney Opera House and get a chance to walk around there. The botanical gardens are fantastic. A number of wonderful things to do in the city. When we got up to Cairns, we went out to the Great Barrier Reef, of course, and I rented a Leica swimsuit that I put on for this thing to do my snorkeling. And my son looked at me and he said, "Dad, you really are terrified of those box jellyfish, aren't you?" And I said, "Son, I'm pretty sure more people have died from melanoma than the box jellyfish." And I really wanted to keep kind of protected on this. It was fun. It was a great time. We didn't see any box jellyfish or crocodile, but I did get to swim with a green sea turtle for about 20 minutes. And we went on a camel tour of Uluru, that Ayers Rock in the background there. The sunsets never were that fantastic. It never did get a really deep red like you see in all the gorgeous pictures. And I want you to pay attention to the sky. Yeah. These were my clear, pristine, gorgeous nights where I'm going to be doing astronomy. And part of the problem with going in December, their summer is just like our summer, and the sky is hazy. The days are hazy. It doesn't get overly clear. And I really wasn't expecting that off in Uluru. I was just hoping for some pretty good nights. We'll get to that. One thing, I flew into Alice Springs with Michael and we rented a car to drive down to Ayers Rock, which is about a 4.5 hour drive. But you're driving through the outback. And you get to pass by Henbury craters. There's actually quite a few of them. About 12 of them, 4 are larger out of those. And they're about 7 to 180 meters across, which is roughly about 20 feet to 600 feet, and about 50 feet deep for the deepest ones that you're looking at. The coolest thing about this, and I would highly recommend it, you can camp here. You can actually camp here. I mean, I wouldn't set the tent up in the bottom of the crater, but I would certainly take a chaise lounge and a sleeping bag and, oh, come on, to do some astronomy from the bottom of a crater. When do you get the opportunity to do that? And you got a whole bunch of craters to pick. So it really is pretty phenomenal and well worth it. And it's 15 kilometers off the highway. So it's not bad at all. Okay, let's get to it. So we got to Uluru. We're all set. We're ready. I'm waiting. The sky's coming down. It's going to be great. I drove around during the daytime. I found a spot I thought would be great. And I got a chance to start to do my work. I set up the red cat. Here's a picture of the Large Magellanic Cloud. There's the tarantula. This is the field of view for the red cat looking at it. It's an okay picture. I'm not thrilled with it. I had problems. Of course, you always do, right? And you kind of plan for these. You know, my tablet didn't work, and I needed the tablet to run the ASIR. There was something out that just kind of went screwy. So the backup for that, because redundancy, you need to have backup for those kinds of things, is using my phone. The problem is the phone screen is really, really tiny, and I think the focus could be a little tighter. I know it looks okay there if you zoom in. I think the stars could be a little tighter. There's also a little bit of tracking error that was with it that I couldn't pick up when I was tracking on this thing and setting it up. So some of the images did not come out well, and I didn't get a chance to stack as many as I would have liked to make a better image. Still, it's a good shot, and we're looking at the Large Magellanic Cloud. And there's Zeta Carini. And again, my background should be much smoother, much nicer, more stacking involved. And again, the same issues as I had with the other one. I had some really nice stuff in there, but not overly pleased with the images. So these are the two that I took the first night with the red cat. And it was only those 2 images. Getting those set up, and they were on for hours. So I was taking 8-minute exposures and the whole bit, and most of them I had to throw out. So I was disappointed with that. Sketching went well. I did a lot of constellations while I was waiting for the images, just as I had planned. I was excited to see the sky in December down there. For one thing, when did we ever get the chance to see all of Eridanus the river? I mean, that's great, from Achenar all the way up, getting up to Kurza next to Rigel. Beautiful. Most of the southern constellations are not very bright. They're not very bright at all. And my evening wasn't totally great. If we look over here, the seeing is fair and the transparency is 4.5. It never got better than 4.5. And a lot of the fainter constellations have 4th magnitude stars in them. So really, by the time I was done, I needed about 12 more. There were some that, if I can only see 1 star, really doesn't count. I need to see more than that. I need a better night. But I got quite a few of them done. I was pretty happy with some of the ones that I could catch, and I would keep going over them so I get a chance to learn them fairly well. Night number 2, cloudy. Night number 3, went back up to Alice Springs. We're getting on the airplane the next day. I took the car out, and I'm just going to be on a plane all day. And I drove out into the country. I watched a beautiful sunset. I got ready, and the sky became overcast. Nothing. I only had one mediocre, decent, okay night, and that was it. So we went back to Sydney, and after New Year's, I flew to New Zealand. I went to the capital, Wellington, where a very good friend of mine, Haratina, or Harry for short, works at the Carter Observatory. And she's really big into astronomy, gave a TED talk in New Zealand. And I met her through the Mars Society. She was a crew astronomer out there, and we've been really good friends for about 15 years. So she invited me to stay at their place and to just do astronomy for all the days we were out there. And boy, I was thrilled with that. So she gave me the great tour of the Carter Observatory and some of their telescopes. This is the Thomas Cook. Originally it was a 9-inch. They've now upgraded it to a 9.75-inch. And originally constructed in England, as you can read there, and brought to New Zealand in 1906. They have several telescopes. That's the Ruth Crisp telescope. She's the one who donated the money for this. It's a 16-inch CAS installed back in 1968. And Buller and Chiven's mount. It's really kind of a very nice instrument. Very old and pretty much outdated at this point, but they're refurbishing the observatory. Haratina has started an organization called Milky Way Kiwi. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them online. And they do lots and lots of astronomy in the Southern Hemisphere. So I was helping them with some of their routines with that. We went up a little outside of Wellington, and every weekend, she and Sam and their daughter Gaia go up to a place called Stonehenge, Aotearoa, which is Maori for New Zealand, basically. And it's Stonehenge. Here's how it works. I have a member of the Phoenix Astronomical Society who has 20 acres of land. And he said, why don't we build Stonehenge in my backyard? So the members got together in the club and they built Stonehenge in the backyard. And they have star parties there. Now, the member who owns the land also uses this for tours and that sort of thing that they run daily. So they have people coming out to see it and they ask for donations, and then they come out and they give them the tour. It took about 2 years to build, and this was opened in 2005, made of concrete. Milky Way Kiwi, now you have star parties there every single weekend. The Phoenix Astronomical Club has star parties there once a month, and they join them for that. So every weekend you can go out there and see what's happening in the sky. It's well designed. It has an analemma. This huge obelisk has a little hole there, and if you stand back at a certain spot, and I guess where I'm taking the picture, and you look through the hole, it will take you right up to the South Celestial Pole. And of course, the little obelisk at the very, very top of it, that's going to cast a shadow off on some lines showing you solar noon. So everything really kind of works out well in this, the solar noon coming down here off of the analemma. Like regular Stonehenge, they've got obelisks on the outside where you're going to watch sunrises at various times of the year. And of course, they love the Maori stories. They got some stones right here for each of these. The sun, of course, as we know, goes over to the north, and it goes to the south, and it goes back to the north. We have our solstice or equinox, our solstice, and back and forth. According to their mythology, the sun had 2 wives, mistresses, actually. One he would spend time with in the south, that's Canopus, and then over here, Aldebaran in the north, and then come back again. So he would spend time at the house for 6 months here and then 6 months back there. This is where I could use the telescopes. This is where I can sketch. This is their largest. They had a 17-inch job. And I got to use the 8. Haratina used the 17 and a half, I guess. And let's see, Sam was using a refractor. It was a big one, but I'm not quite sure what the size is anymore. Look at my sky. Again, I've got 2 great nights here in New Zealand. Our problem now is we have the smoke from the fires messing up the weather in New Zealand. So New Zealand was having some uncharacteristically colder, cloudy, miserable type weather. Couldn't catch a break on this thing at all. But it really was a lot of fun because I was part of the star party. Actually, people were coming in from the public, and I was running a telescope and flipping the knob over and showing them different star clusters and different things in the Southern Hemisphere, which was a real hoot. That was a lot of fun. I did get a couple of sketches in, like 2, basically, because the clouds rolled in. We had a few open spots, but not great seeing, not very good at all. The moon was a little bit past first quarter, so the moon was getting to be fairly bright. And it looks like this in the sky visually. I mean, at a first quarter moon, you expect it to be lit up over on this side. In New Zealand and well below the equator, it's lit up over here. And of course, now we're looking at Clavius and Tycho at the top rather than the bottom. I was able to get a little bit of a sketch in of the moon of Archimedes, but even that was hampered by the clouds, so I couldn't see a whole lot of detail through the scope trying to catch it. I looked at it, I gave it to our host to keep, but I realized it's upside down. This is the way I see Archimedes in the north, but really it looks like that in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's the way it really should appear. So I guess my name's upside down. Yes, here's my fantastic sketch of Alpha Centauri. There it is. And I know, ooh, 2 dots, right? Of course you want to see Alpha Centauri. It's the next closest star. My gosh, it's where the Robinson family went and Lost in Space, right around like trying to get to, right? I was surprised. I needed a Barlow. I needed 100 power to catch this in an 8-inch telescope. And look how close it is. And that's with an 8-inch. In 2001, when it was right over in here, I saw it for the first time in my life in Africa during that solar eclipse trip. And I was disturbed. Remember, I only took binoculars on that trip. When I looked at Alpha Centauri with the binoculars, I could split it. I could easily split them because they were so far apart. Now, they're much, much closer. You can't split them in binoculars. And you're going to need a Barlow on a telescope to do it, at least 100 power. And it's going to get a little worse before it gets better as far as that goes. I don't expect, well, I'm never going to be able to see them with binoculars again. It's about an 80-year period. So by the time it swings around and coming up into here, it's going to be getting quite a bit later into the century. So the future, what does it hold? What are we left with? When I got back to Sydney, I texted a friend of mine who lived over here in Perth, a good friend of mine named Maria. And originally, I was uncertain, do I go to New Zealand or do I go to Perth? Financially, time-wise, I could only pull one of them off, and I chose New Zealand. I wanted to see New Zealand. There's a lot more opportunity with Haratina doing the astronomy and that kind of stuff, although it was cloudy for the most part. When I got back to Sydney, I texted Marie and I said, is this the point where you tell me I should have gone to Perth? And she sent a text back with a smiley face and said, I came here for the 3 W's, work, water, and weather. We've had beautiful, pristine, clear skies here in Perth. And that makes a lot of sense. Like Chile, the winds coming off the water here are going to blow everything out of the area. So Perth is really going to be fairly good. And I would recommend that. So it's part of my future plan. is to head down into Perth. I'll rent a car and actually get out of the city, obviously. I think if you had to go and check out the southern sky, you really do want to go in June and July, especially if you've never been before, because you're going to see the Milky Way up there, and it is going to knock your socks off. It's just incredible. You're going to have better weather. Skies won't be as hazy. The temperature is not going to be as blazing hot as we had in Uluru. And yeah, temperatures, we're up at about, I don't think up more than 116. I think that was about the hottest it got. But you're not going to have that kind of stuff if you head out into their winter. This is really the way you want to travel. I also checked with the Perth Observatory out there, and I have some friends over there. And this is their largest instrument. Now, they're actually in the town of Bickley now, which is about 35 kilometers north of Perth. But it's a 24-inch telescope. They do a lot of great work. Founded in 1896, they're the oldest astronomical observatory in Australia. They co-discovered the Uranus ring system, discovered lots of minor planets, supernovas, you know, all that good stuff. And we're also part of the Skynet system, which I have the telescopes on Mars with as well. That's my connection with them. You want to visit some observatories and be able to do that. I got a chance to visit Michael's University Observatory and talk to a nice guy there who gave us a good tour. But if you get a chance, there are lots of opportunities. If you don't want to do Australia on your own, there are lots of places that will guide and take you around for a price. Outback Sky Journeys, Magellan Observatory, Sky Intel has their own observatories tour where you got to do lots of stargazing. There are places you can rent telescopes and they'll take you out into pristine skies. You can have all that, or you can just kind of go and do it on your own. But you definitely want to look at some of the great sites down there, Siding Spring, Mount Stromlo, the Park Radio Telescope. Remember the movie The Dish? All those things are fantastic and worth checking out. It's amazing. It's a great adventure, and you definitely want to prepare to head down into the southern sky to take a look at some of the wonders of a gorgeous, gorgeous new sky. Thanks. Do you have any questions? So I'll stop the pause here and...
Yeah, Peter, did you spend any time at Siding Springs on that trip?
I did not get down to Siding Springs or Mount Stromlo or Parks, no. Basically, the first part was time with Michael and then just doing the astronomy at Uluru in New Zealand. Hi, MAJ's iPhone.
Oh, are you seeing me?
Oh, I can see that you're, what would you like to ask? You got a question?
I had the good fortune to be in Uluru years ago, and we went out at night into the airport, and we had an astronomy guru share that southern sky with us. Fantastic.
Wonderful, wonderful.
What a trip you had too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
What fun.
Thanks.
I'm sewing masks.
Okay.
Can you still hear me?
I can.
How can I get away?
You just walk away from your computer and go into the other room. That's
Okay, this was fun. Thank you so much, Peter. You're awesome.
Thanks
And,
much.
thank you for sharing your trip. I'm going to go away.
Okay. Keep looking up. Thanks.
Yeah, Steve, this is Andy Heilman. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I've been to Brazil, I don't know how many times, at least 100. And I've seen all of the stars, but what I haven't seen is the Magellanic Clouds. What kind of darkness do you need to see those?
What time of year were you down there?
Oh, just about any time. But I'm thinking it's the winter sky that's better down there. Their winter.
Actually, yeah, it's higher in the winter than it would be in the summer.
But what's the visibility? Is it about a 4 or 5 or in magnitude to see it?
Yeah, it's fairly bright, actually. Fourth magnitude, you could easily pick it up. I'll bet I could catch it with 3.5. It is fairly bright. Now, the small Magellanic Cloud's a little fainter. So fourth magnitude, but again, my skies were only 4.5 and tops, and that the worst was about 3. But I could see it easily. I could see
in Australia as well?
In Australia, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
It was better in when you were in
magnitude in Chile and Africa, but not as good in Australia, just the time of year.
And binoculars help a lot to see it?
Binoculars are always a great choice because they don't take up a lot of weight in your luggage, and there's so much you can do with them. So I really recommend those, yeah. But you should be able to see them visually. Yeah.
Well, and usually I'm in Rio, and the light's pretty bright there, the light pollution.
You're trying to see them from in the town?
Well, I don't exactly have transport out into the country there.
Yeah, you're not going to catch them from inside Rio. No, it's going to be way too bright. I know from being in Santiago and looking at the sky, and I could just barely make out the Southern Cross and Alpha Centauri, and that was about it. But yeah, you're looking about second magnitude, first magnitude, depending where you are. So, and I had to go in a dark alley to see the Southern Cross. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I didn't get to see it because my Zoom visual didn't work, but I did hear you.
Okay. That'll be recorded, so.
We'll get it up on YouTube, Andy. You can take a look at it there.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Yeah, I was trying to talk. I forgot I had my microphone mute as well as my software mute. So, Peter, I was going to say I was glad you powered through that because I was like laughing at your jokes and so on, and acutely aware all the time that you're not seeing any of this feedback. I think maybe we should have tried letting a little microphones be unmuted or something like that to see how that would work. But
at least your laugh, Rich.
You got feedback from me on this, or?
Yeah, well, I was thinking, I felt like I needed to react to you, but I knew you couldn't see the reaction, so I was feeling a little bit of discomfort on your behalf, but you're a pro. You're gonna take it through it. Yeah. So, thank you, Peter. Round of applause. I don't know if that was untrue.
I'm honored to be a part of the inaugural program here.
Right. Now, I want to really quickly turn the floor over to Blaine. Tom says you're muted. You're allowed to unmute yourself. I tried to unmute you. I think you're allowed to unmute yourself. No, I'm sorry. Okay, now anybody can unmute yourself. I forgot to turn that one off. I unmuted everybody, but some people remuted themselves.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Priscilla. Priscilla, I wanted to
Boy,
thank
wouldn't let me. It told me you had me blocked.
Yeah, sorry about that, Adam. I'm an amateur at this, so I'm learning the ropes myself. But real quick, since he has to leave at 8 o'clock, I want to turn the floor over to Blaine. Blaine, are you there?
Yeah, I am here. Yes.
All right. Blaine is starting up the LVAAS book club. So Blaine, why don't you fill us in on that?
Yeah. As you may have read in the newsletter or heard at one of the previous meetings, we are kicking off the book club. I sent a couple of notifications out. I've gotten probably a half dozen or so folks who are interested. So I thank you for that. Those who expressed interest, you should have gotten an invite to a Google group, which has some instructions and has what our candidate books are. And that so if you didn't get that email and you expressed interest, let me know, and we'll make sure we get you on board. But I expect here within the next, I don't know, week or so, we should probably have a book selected, and we'll head down this experimental path of the LVAAS book club.
All right, thanks, Blaine. Yeah, if you're interested in the LVAAS book club, you look up Blaine's email address on the contacts page on our website. He's the director of education, and let him know, and he will get you signed up for the Google group, which is like an email list where we can email each other about the book club without bothering everybody else, and catch the whole group on that. All right, so listen, what I'm going to do, we usually take a break after the presentation, and so I'm just going to leave everything wide open here for a couple of minutes. So we just have a little bit of break, and we'll reconvene, say in about 5 minutes or so, and take care of the other business we have to. But in the meantime, Peter's still with us. If you have any other questions for Peter or anything else you just want to chat about, feel free. It's an open meeting for the next few minutes, and I'll just sit here and try to stay in the background.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, it's Priscilla. I'm just saying thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. And it's a new experience for me too. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I really enjoyed your presentation. You come across so well. Thank you,
Priscilla. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Peter, this is Andy again. I just want to say what you said about the Milky Way is absolutely true. When I was on the beach there with my friend, he told me it was a Milky Way, and I said, no, that's a cloud. Well, the same cloud showed up the next day. So. Absolutely unbelievable how bright it is down there, right under the center of it.
When I was in Africa, it's the first time I ever saw the zodiacal light, and the eclipse was over. The sky again was just phenomenal and just gorgeous. And I'm just staring at the sky as it's getting dark, and I'm trying to figure this whole thing out, and I'm still confused with my north, souths, and east and west backwards and the whole bit. And I'm looking at this thing, and I've got this look of confusion, and this guy walks by me, and because the Milky Way is there, I can see it already, but it's in the wrong spot. It's not in the right area. I'm thinking it can't rise there, And he looks at me and he says, "Zodiacal light." And he just kept walking by, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, okay, got it. But yeah, it is phenomenal and incredibly bright. And you always think it's a Magellanic clouds I want to see. That's the gorgeous thing. But then you forget about that when you see the Milky Way, and it's just jaw-droppingly beautiful, impressive.
Hi, Peter. This is Dave Binder.
Hey,
Thank
Dave.
Thank you for your presentation. Very, very interesting.
Thank you, Dave.
And
Great to hear
how's
you.
your son doing?
Yeah.
I just started.
Yeah. Do we hit that?
Hey, Priscilla.
Peter.
Dave.
How's your son doing?
He's doing well. They're under quarantine right now, so have classes at home, but he lives in a small apartment with 4 other people. So that's basically it. So they can go out grocery shopping and do that kind of stuff, but it's the basic quarantine orders everybody else has at this point. And he says he has his bug out bag, and I'm like, I don't know, where would you go? I mean, first of all, the only thing out there is mass transit. You have to take trains and, buses and everything else, which is not a good idea. So I think you're probably safer just staying in the apartment. But he's doing well, and he's in good spirits and loving it. So he's still happy down there. It's still working.
So, Peter, do you have a plan on when you're going to make your trip back to the Perth side of the continent?
I do. I did. I was heading out to Mount Fuji to climb Mount Fuji next June of 2021 with my college roommate. And then I said, do you mind if I don't come back to the U.S. with you? And he says, no, not at all. I have no problem with that. So when we're done, he's going to go back to the U.S. and I'm going to fly to Perth. And then I'll spend a couple of days down there and then fly over to Sydney to see Michael. And then probably over to New Zealand, or I'm not quite sure. See some other parts yet. But all of that now is on hold, depending on what's coming up and what's going, with our current situation. But that was the game plan, and hopefully still is. We'll see.
Awesome. I see we have a text message, a chat message from Steve Walters. I don't know if you're seeing it, but he said, Peter, thanks for the great talk. I've been to Aussieland twice, and it's amazing. One unusual thing there is that you normally face to the north, so everything is moving in the opposite direction.
Yeah. I just turned the chats on, so I see that. Yeah, you're right, Steve. And it was really freaky seeing the moon lit on the wrong side for first quarter. It didn't make any sense at all. That was really the weird thing, having the moon upside down. When you look at a telescope, it's right side up.
Reminds me last year at the Shooting Star Farm experience with the Moravian students, and as we were packing up, I recounted a song lyric to Gary that tells you how to tell if the moon is waxing or waning. My favorite band, Cowboy Junkies. Anyway, he listened to what I said, and he said, that actually sounds astronomically correct. And I said, yeah, it is in the Northern Hemisphere. And he says, well, Rich, I don't teach about the Southern Hemisphere. But all those rules about the moon, yeah, they're backwards down there.
Yeah. And watching Orion rise toes first in the sky is always a treat.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me.
Did you ever consider going to the Southern Hemisphere for an eclipse?
Technically, I'm heading to one this November, actually. So I'm all set to go on a cruise to see the one in Patagonia in December of this year. And hopefully that trip is still on. Because that's an exciting one. It's going to Santiago and then going down the coast and then different excursions. But one of them is actually to Antarctica. So I get a plane and go to Antarctica. 50% chance depending on weather. It's a weather thing. And after that, we cruise to Antarctica, but we don't disembark. We just kind of cruise along the coast, the peninsula there, come back up, hit the Falklands, hit the eclipse, and end up at Buenos Aires. So it's 3 weeks, and I'm really looking forward to that and hope it's still on. But we leave Thanksgiving Day. Depends what the virus is going to do as far as coming back in the winter and the late fall. So we'll have to see.
Is that the one with Astronomy Magazine? I was kind of looking at stuff and I saw one similar to that.
That's the one from us. That's the one from Sky and Tel. This is the
Okay.
Sky and Tel trip. Yep.
I just went and looked out my window, and it's actually kind of clear now, and get one last chance maybe to see Venus near the Pleiades. When this meeting's when we're done here. So I haven't forgot about it now, so don't let me forget. Everybody remind me. Well, all right. Maybe we should go ahead. One last round of applause for our speaker. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. It's a pleasure.
And take a few more minutes and take care of the LVAAS business kind of stuff that we need to do. Is the membership director online? Gwynnie, are you there with us? Yeah.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't see you though. Well, there.
I gotta turn it on.
There you go. Hey, all right.
Yeah.
So take it away.
All right, so I know we have 2 people here present tonight to do their second readings, so I'm gonna do them one by one, and if you could just turn your camera on just to say your name to everybody who's present, we'll use that as your second reading for tonight. So we'll start with Daniel Florishak.
Let's
see if he didn't go AFK.
Daniel, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Okay, here I am.
Oh, there you are.
All right, just say your name.
Sorry, I had the mute on.
All right, it's good to see you. All right. And then the next one is Varsha Borkar. If Varsha, if you could turn your camera on and just say hello, that'd be great.
Hello.
Hi, Varsha. Good to see you.
Yep, you too.
All right, so that will count for both your second readings. So you're now officially full members. So welcome to LVAAS. We're glad to have you. And as far as I know, I don't think we have any new members that are wanting to join, but if not, shoot me a message in chat and we can chat afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Quinn, and welcome to LVAAS, you guys. You're now full members. Yeah, let me just talk for a minute about how we are dealing with the pandemic at LVAAS. I think you all are pretty much know, or you won't be surprised by this, but obviously we've canceled all face-to-face events until it's safe to do those again, and we've pretty much asked people to severely limit the access to our facilities, except for mostly except for required maintenance stuff. And as you might know, Pulpit Rock is up on top of the mountain above the Hamburg Reservoir, and the Hamburg Reservoir during the first week of the social distancing was extremely popular for hikers, and Hamburg decided that was not comfortable for them in light of the fact that they're trying to continue to provide clean drinking water for the residents of the city. So Hamburg is pretty strictly shut down. They've blocked the road. They have an officer actually posted there, from what we know, pretty much full time. And we've communicated with them, and we are allowed to access the site, and we've told them that we're only going to do so on a very occasional basis of strict necessity, of just making sure all our stuff is okay. And Ron is going to keep mowing the lawn. We've got the okay to do that. And Ron and Frank were up there to fix the lawnmower a couple times in the past week or so. We're cooperating with Hamburg in doing just what we need to do to take care of our facilities, and obviously we're not making any use of them for their intended purpose right now, because of the crisis. And more or less the same thing with South Mountain. We are checking on South Mountain to make sure it's okay. It's being visited a few times each week by different people, just to make sure everything's okay there and keep an eye on it. And otherwise, we're not using it until the situation changes. So I know Bill and the Clarks and Frank and Ron are all online. So if any of you guys want to add anything to what I just said, please chime in, and feel free to speak to the rest of the group as you'd like. And it's okay if you don't.
This is Frank.
Hi, Frank. Go ahead.
Just as far as the report on Pulpit Rock, the asset's in great shape. Really no issues over the winter. Obviously, we're going to be delaying a lot of the work that we were intending to do on maintenance of facilities and reassembling of the 40-inch. But always good up there, and we expect it to be that way. Whenever we get back, we'll be putting out additional Pulpit Rock buzz notifications so that people know we have activities up there.
Okay, thanks, Frank. And yeah, I really appreciate you and Ron taking care of that, and I appreciate everybody that's checking in on South Mountain. We have a lot invested in those assets, so we do just have to keep an eye on them. I see I've gotten some Aurora over here. My blue screen has been working pretty reliably, but for some reason it fades out a little bit there. All right, let me check my agenda here, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, that's everything I had on the list. Tom, as assistant director, do you have anything you want to add to the discussion?
Nah, pretty much everything's on hold. We probably expect sometime around the middle of April to kind of look forward a little bit and see, you know, how we're going to handle May. So if everybody can just keep their eye on the website and stuff like that, you know, as we know news, you'll know news. So.
Right. I see our secretary, Dennis, you were online earlier. If you're still on, you have anything you want to mention?
Yes, I'm here, and no, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay, Dennis. Anyone else? Anyone else on the board or any of the committee chairs at LVAAS have anything you want to say to the group while we're all together? And I'll just say, okay, floor is open. Anybody has anything you want to say? Speak up, you know, feel free to chime in.
Just to say thank you, Rich, for setting this up.
No problem, Andy. It was fun. I'm obviously not perfect at it yet, but I'm getting some practice. So I do have I did sign up for a paid account for Zoom. If you get a free account, you can set up meetings of your own, but they're limited to 40 minutes, I think, officially. Now, I believe they've been waiving that, you know, when maybe it's kind of an as available thing for their capacity. But I just want to mention this because I've been doing it with some of my friend groups, and you know, we get together and do trivia or play cards. We had a poker game Friday night. And you know, you're stuck at home, you don't get to see people, but if you get cameras and microphones set up and get together online using Zoom or perhaps something else, the Zoom is the one we've been using now. It's a lot of fun. It's actually a pretty good substitute for getting together with people. You know, it's got its downsides, but you know, on the other hand, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to you know, you can wear a shirt like I'm wearing, which looks okay from the neck down, but it's all worn out. The sleeves are tattered, so I don't you know, you can have a combination of having the comforts of home and still get together with your friends. So I kind of recommend that. So again, thanks, Peter, for a great talk. I really appreciate it. It was I think went off really well. Was well received. And again, welcome to the new members who became full members tonight. And one last time, anybody else have anything you want to say?
This is Frank.
Hey, Frank.
If folks are willing, I really think this is you know, a good thing to do even once we're off of quarantine and back to normal operation. Just having the ability for folks to be able to tie into a meeting like this. So if possible, I think it'd be quite interesting if this could continue. So, but obviously, you know, folks have to work on that to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that's something reasonable to explore, frankly. I mean, I think we have pretty good internet at South Mountain, so we could even when we do have a physical meeting there, we can you know, explore allowing remote people to join the meeting by, you know, this kind of a technique. Or maybe we'll even do some meetings remotely. We don't have to worry about the weather as long as it doesn't take down the internet. Oh, and I was going to say, if anybody's interested in talking about how to have an online star party, maybe we can try to put something like that together for some time in the next few weeks. You know, we need maybe some video astronomy, and somebody could use some planetarium software to give a planetarium show or something like that. I'll agree to run the Zoom meeting. I'm not going to take on the burden of doing everything else, but if folks are interested in doing that, get in touch with me and we'll see if we can put something together.
Rich, just to let you know, the UACNJ had their star party last night virtually. The guy who does a monthly, the one guy, Lonnie Burris, does a monthly he does a monthly one that, you know, it's he uses a stellarium and, you know, what's to see in the night sky, and that came off okay.
Great. I know the Northeast Astronomy Forum had their online substitute for their event yesterday. We were all supposed to be up in Suffern, New York over the weekend for the festival, but obviously that got canceled. I tuned in for like a few minutes. I didn't really get that interested to sit there watching it, but anybody else watch all those presentations that NEAF had going on?
Well, this is Tom. I saw most of them. They tended to like have the talks at the normal time and then kind of run commercials in between with different vendors kind of having things on sale. But if you tuned in at the right times to watch the talks, it was interesting. The talks were good.
Good. Good.
Yeah, Rich, it was good because I did the same thing Tom did basically. It sort of, for me at least, it went out sort of in the middle, and then I had to leave. I was looking at it on YouTube, and I had to leave YouTube, and then restart it from the link that I got sent from the Rockland Club, and then I was able to continue viewing the rest of it. But they had such big gaps between the talks that they could actually re-show the talks between and the gaps between the talks. So you could, if you missed something, you could sort of re-watch it in the gaps.
And they did tape it, so you can actually, I think, go on YouTube and watch it now if you want.
What would be the for that?
Then you can fast forward through the commercials.
Yeah, what's the YouTube channel for that?
You'd probably have to go to their website. I don't know it offhand, but they did say they were taping it and would have it available for YouTube.
The official name that they were using was the NEAF Virtual Experience, and that's what I used to search on YouTube to find it. So if you do that, if you search NEAF, virtual experience, you'll end up not one big YouTube file, but all individual ones, including all the commercials from the different vendors. So you'll
what was that?
like a 4-minute one here.
That's NEAF, NEAF for Northeast Astronomy Forum.
Okay, thank you.
It's run by the Rockland Astronomy Club, ROCKLAND.
And they have set a tentative date for September 12th and 13th, I think it is, to run the fall NEAF.
Right. Hopefully this is all blown over by then. All righty, everybody. Well, tell you what, I am going to go grab my binoculars and go out on my back deck and take a look at Venus and the Pleiades, since I haven't seen it with my own eyes yet. I'm just gonna leave the meeting open for a little while if you all want to sit here and chat, but I'm gonna turn off my microphone and video and go disappear. And if everybody else signs off when I come back, I'll shut it down. But as far as I know, it doesn't matter. So I'm just gonna leave it going in case you want to keep chatting. And I'm seeing a couple of chats there. Appreciate the remarks, Priscilla and Steve and Francis, and I'm glad it went off very well. Oh, you know what? What I'm going to do first is I'm going to stop the recording. So this will be the official end of the meeting. And thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Rich. Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good week.
Thanks.
You.
Thanks, Rich and Peter. Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everybody.
Great meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.